one thing about nutrition, it's really difficult for people to know that they're doing well. We know that we need 3 things in order to be successful: challenging cardio, strength training, and proper nutrition. Cardio and strength training, you know when you leave the gym that you've crushed it, but you don't know if you're eating properly. Forget all these fancy diets and all this.
Yeah.
Do what's going to be good for you to sustain. Some people come in all guns a-blazing. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then they just fall off.
Welcome back to Optimized by Jeffrey Delaney. I am super excited for today. We got 2 of my favorite people together. Jeff being one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever spoken to on longevity and how to live for longevity. And we got Johnny on today, who I would argue is what most men, or what men should want to be in their later years. You are the poster boy for longevity. So I am super excited to get you guys together. Thanks for coming on.
Here.
Awesome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's funny. We were talking about Johnny, and you just like all the positive stuff, and then you see this guy. I mean, he's like I always say a poster board for literally what my clients at T clinics strive to be. Right? They actually every guy in general, because like, man, you're 65, good looking, in shape. Like, it's like, you know, what don't you have?
Oh, come.
So
I'm still trying to get better, man.
Yeah.
Like all of us, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, you can't stop it. You just got to try to slow it down, I always say. And so, you know, just be proactive, which you obviously look like way more than proactive. But what kind of, you know, I want to know, like, what got you into the space that you're in, and not only just helping other people do it, but like, just being like, you're the example. I always say, for me, like in my business, and people are like, oh, you're in good shape. Like, I live it and I breathe it and I sleep it. And it's like, you know, I don't want to go to a dentist with bad teeth. Yeah. So if you're going to come to me, like, I better look the part, and my people that are there better look the part. And you definitely look the part. So I guess, where'd your journey start and what got you
As a kid, I think the big difference between when I was growing up and the generation today growing up, and probably the last few generations, is that we didn't have much to do. We literally had 5 channels on the TV: ABC, NBC, CBS, and 2 what we called UHF channels. And no remote controls. You have to dial them in, and there was no programming.
I used to look for the ones that had the scribbly.
Oh man, they all did. And you know, we'd have the rabbit ears, and you know, around midnight, 1 a.m., they would sign off. They'd be like, yeah, we're signing off. We'll be back on tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. And so you had to find other things to do. And I grew up in Boston, and we spent a lot of time outside, regardless of the weather. And we read a lot of books and watched a lot of sports. And I got into pro wrestling. I liked pro wrestling. Okay. That was one of the shows on Saturday mornings, and I got into it. And I found myself drawn to the guys with the good physiques. So then I started going into the bookstores and seeing the magazines.
You bought the Arnold Encyclopedia Bodybuilding?
Yeah. The education of a bodybuilder. Yeah. And I saw, I would buy those magazines, and I started getting into weightlifting, and I loved it. And I became obsessed with it. And I started doing it in the mornings before school, coming back. And it was just my passion. And I started following Arnold, and you know, the rest is history. I've been in it ever since. Never slowed down. I started in the early 70s, and my mom still lives in the same house. And in the room that I used to do my weight training was the laundry room, little tiny spot. And I closed the door when I went up there because I used to thumbtack my workouts on the back of the door, and they're still there from 1973. And I was ahead of my time when I look back, because when I would write down everything that I did, and then unknowing that this was really a smart idea, I would go back and say, okay, this is what I did 2 weeks ago. I got to get better.
Yeah.
So if you can't see your progress, you're not going to be able to have the success and achieve the goals that you're trying to do.
Yeah, what gets tracked gets managed, right? Like what gets measured gets managed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So to me, I'm always preaching, we want to visually see our success. So it's important to do.
So I think it's interesting because most people can't stay disciplined on something even that they love for a week. How have you stayed disciplined in fitness for 45 years?
The key word in that question is discipline. And discipline and motivation are both important, but there's different things regarding them that help you achieve the results that you want to get. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the engine. Motivation will get you to the gym on Monday morning when you're all pumped up. Discipline will get you there on Friday when you're tired and unmotivated. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. And if you rely only on motivation, you're going to stop when it fades. But if you build discipline, you will always achieve the success that you're looking for. So there's a big difference between motivation and discipline. And I think it's the discipline, bro. You have to have the discipline because motivation is temporary.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you to add to that, because when you ask the question, I already know where, like, outside of his motivation and discipline is, he was a guy that was always fascinated with it. I kind of like, so I'm probably 15 years behind you or whatever, as far as like as you started coming up, but it was like, one, how fascinating the human body is. Number two, how you can manipulate the human body. And it's like, that almost becomes, for me, addicting to know that, like, if I do A, B, or C, I could get A, B, or C outcome. Yeah. And so, like, it's, I feel like that's what brings me back every single day. I mean, you're going to go through areas of life and seasons where your motivation maybe not be there, but like he said, the discipline's going to keep you on it because one, how good you feel from it.
Yeah.
And you're not the norm either. That's the other thing is, like, I got to keep maintaining elite and, kind of, I'm going to outlive and out physique most of the guys and even close to you. Yeah. So, like, I mean, like I said, you could definitely tell you're on it and you have a passion for it. And, I think that's the biggest thing is just the fascination and want. And most of it has to go back to is, like, you saw results and you felt the difference. And so now you're going to keep doing that regardless of the situation.
Right. Right. And again, the key word you just said is passion. To me, it's one of the greatest words in our dictionary. And when I look back at all successful people, I swear every person that's really successful has passion. And passion's a beautiful thing. If you don't have passion, you got to check their pulse, man. They're probably not alive, because that helps drive us. Oh. And when you have that passion, it's easy to get up in the morning. It really is. Yeah.
So I want to zoom in to this. So Johnny, you're 65. What does your day look like from a nutrition and fitness standpoint?
Yeah, I want to know this.
Like, yeah. So, like, start in the morning. What does your average day look like from fitness? Nutrition?
I'm up at 4 a.m. almost every morning. I do not have an alarm clock. The only time I will use an alarm clock if I have a 3:30 flight or a 5 o'clock flight. And you know what? It never goes off. I always wake up before it. And it still drives me crazy. I still don't understand how somebody can get up Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. every day, and then Saturday comes and they sleep till 10 a.m. It just boggles my mind. How do you do it? I just wake up and I'm ready to go. So I get up, and first thing I do is I usually look at my phone, look at the weather, check some emails, and then I get out of bed and I walk right outside and I dive in my swimming pool. And I do 5 laps. And I put in a really beautiful heater, and I heated it up. And one time when it wasn't on, and it wasn't on for a while, and I didn't go in, And I said, it's too cold. It's too cold. But I was looking at something, and somebody was on, I think it was Instagram, and he said, man, I started losing it. And I said, stop being a bitch and start doing something. I said, you know what? That's me. I'm being a bitch now about going in the pool because the fucking heater ain't on. And this is the wrong habit. So I walked in the pool and it was cold, and I swam and I got out and it was cold. And then I said, I can't walk in no more. I got to dive in. I started thinking about that. So I hadn't dove in a pool in probably 30 years. I just didn't do it. And I said, when you stop doing something, you lose it. And then it becomes almost like you're afraid to do it, or you forget how to do it. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to dive in a pool. You stand there, you put your arms in, and you go in. So I went in the pool and I started swimming like that, and I kept the heater off. So the heat is off. Now listen, it's still South Florida.
Yeah. And he's like, it's 38 degrees. Suck it up.
It's the coldest it is like 68 degrees.
Yeah.
But it's dark. There's no lights on, and it's cold. So I go in there, and I do that every day. I come out, I rinse, I get dressed, I make a double espresso, I take my water jug that I got from the Gronk family, and I put in some amino acids and another thing that I take with it in the morning that helps with my hydration and clarity and things like this. Yeah. And I drink 20 ounces of water, and I go to the gym. And I get to the gym 5:15, 5:30 every day. And I go in, I stretch out, and I'm there for 2 hours. I do a workout. I meet with members, and I talk with them. I come home, and I have my breakfast. And it's usually egg whites and one egg, one real egg, oatmeal with some peanut butter and some blueberries. And that's my breakfast almost every single day. And then I go back to the gym, and I start working. And I'm really good about hydrating.
Especially in South Florida.
Yeah.
Well, I saw on your IG, you have a lot of it's outside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My gym is 10,000 square feet outside.
Okay.
So, and summers are humid.
Yeah.
But even no matter where you live, you got to hydrate, but a little more down here. So I hydrate a lot, and I try and eat good all the time. Now, I figured this out a long time ago. Everyone talks about eating clean, and there's a fine line between eating clean and being obsessed,
right?
Or eating clean and still having a life.
Yeah.
Okay. So I figured out this: if you are eating a typical American diet, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's 3 meals a day. 7 days is 21 meals. But let's back 7 meals out. Why? Because for whatever reason, and no one knows this, but breakfast, you could eat the same thing every single day and you never get tired of it.
Right.
No, I don't care if you love filet mignon and a lobster tail from Maine, you can't eat it every night. So, but for some reason, we could all eat the same breakfast and it never gets old. So take this 21 meals, deduct 7, you get 14 meals left. If you can eat clean for 12 of those 14 meals, guess what? You're eating clean 90% of the time. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. You still got to live, and you got to sustain it. Now, there's some people that could eat clean every meal, and they do it, and I don't know how they do it. It's not me. I enjoy cooking. Yeah. I enjoy drinking some wine. I enjoy having some fun and living a little bit.
That's called balance, by the way.
Balance. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And if you've got that balance, I think it's easier to follow that. Yeah. So that's the key. And so I do that, and I try and do that a lot.
Well, I always say, consistency and compliance, 80% of the time will produce results.
Yep.
It does. And so I think some people, obviously, I know you're talking about extreme because you've done some physique stuff, but that's like to a whole nother level. Yeah. Like because you're trying to get the best outcome and you're trying to be more of a sniper, but like you're consistent every day and okay, you might have 1 or 2 bags of meals a week. Like that little bit doesn't, make that big of a difference. Now it's when you get laxed on that and you start having a couple more is where you see, and it's just, if more people would focus on being, good 70, 80% of the time, because unfortunately they live bad 70, 80 and they eat good 20%. And it just shift the amount and you see results. I mean, look at you. I mean, like, you didn't say I'm going splitting the macros down to the hair. I'm not sitting there eating broccoli with X amount of meals. Like you're just generally eating healthy and you could produce amazing results.
Yeah, it's true.
I think another thing too,
consistency.
Another thing that you just said that's important is sustainability, and I would love your guys' take on this, where how do you work out for sustainability and longevity? Whereas most people just go for broke, right? Like you see Johnny, you come in, or Jeff, you walk in and you guys you're fit. Your jack's like, I want to look like that guy. But you don't take into consideration the fact that you guys have been working out for 40 years.
Right.
So how do you work out for longevity and sustainability while still aiming at that muscle growth without just thinking like, hey, I need to look like Johnny and Jeff in 3 weeks?
You got to have passion. We talked about, you got to have passion. So you got to enjoy it. Yeah. And you have to have your discipline, and you have to have goals. So you have to have goals no matter what they are, no matter how small they are. And I tell people, write those goals down, because when you write them down, they become reality, much higher percentage than if you don't, if they're just up in your head. So it's about that. It's about staying educated. And staying educated is easy when you could read about things you're passionate about, right? So we're kind of putting in all the things that we're talking about, passion and discipline and the things that we like to do. And for me, and you were kind of mentioning this, Jeff, I look for, and it's harder and harder to find at my age, I still look for guys older than me that are killing it, that are doing it. And I gravitate to them, and I'll write them on Instagram, and I'll reach out to them because, and I'll say how wonderful they're doing, because I want to be that guy. I want to continue doing it. It's really great for me to see people in their 70s still crushing it, because they inspire me. Yeah. And I really think that a lot of those people don't understand just how many people they're inspiring. Yeah. But it's good to have that person that's out there that you can go after.
For sure. And what do you think about from like a practical sense of like specific to working out and stuff? Like how do you work out for how do you work out for longevity instead?
So looking back, obviously he seems like he put in the work, hard work. I mean, he, like I said, he loves it probably as much as I love it. But back when I was younger, obviously you probably trained very differently. And, I kind of look back and I'm like, as training evolved and ways to kind of be more efficient with building muscle or hypertrophy, it's like, man, I could have probably saved myself some aches and pains on A, B, or C, but it's part of the learning process. And unfortunately too, in your era or even mine, I was still in the 80s, is like, there was a pathway, but it was very archaic on certain things. And even to this day, like, even some of the, I love some of the new machines. I hate some of them, depending on what it is, but it's just how the evolution of, just kinesiology and, some of the ways to kind of build the most muscle possible. It's definitely got better to kind of save your back or your knees or, so I do look back and wish I would have had the knowledge I have now to be able to adjust that so I could keep doing this longer. Yeah. Right. But you learn, like you said, you're working around kind of the aging process, and you're just finding ways to still stay efficient in what you're trying to do. It's just a little bit of reading and education and, just trying to stay, I don't want to put it like kind of more up to date. So you're not, because I look at it this way, is like I'm one injury away or one sickness away from being like not doing anything. And it's like, I would never survive if I did nothing. Like I need that in my life. So
it's an addiction.
Yeah.
And the word addiction is usually a connotation is a negative, but there's a lot of good addictions, and we gotta look at that word a little differently. And it's addiction, but in in a way, if you don't exercise, if you're traveling, if you're off of your routine, your body's screaming to get worked out. And when I'm really on, if I miss a day, my body's saying, what's wrong? You know, so it's really important. But it's, you know, some of the things you talk about, you use the word archaic. When I was growing up and getting into this, there was no, it was real hard to learn.
Yeah.
You know, you had magazines.
Oh, you were making your own variations well before the machine came out, you know?
So when I got into, and I don't even remember how, but I got into Olympic weightlifting, and I started doing that, and I competed. I actually won a silver medal in the Junior Olympics for weightlifting in 1975.
Okay.
And I learned how to do the snatch through a book I rented in the library. And the book had this Bulgarian weightlifter who they just held the shutter down when he did a lift, and they showed like 20 of the photos from the beginning all the way up until he completed the lift.
Yeah.
That's how I taught myself how to do that lift.
Yeah.
And I would look at that book, and I would look at every single shot, 20 of them.
And dissect it.
From the knees down, 20 times. Then I'd go from the waist to the knee. Then I'd go from the up, and I would look and look and look and go through, because that lift, when you're coming up, there comes to a point where you got to jump under it and hold it up. And that was the point, the thing I was doing over and over and over, and came from a book in the library that wasn't very thick because there wasn't much out there. And I think I was about 8 months overdue in returning that book. I mean, that's another thing that's archaic. No one has a library card.
Well, I would say, like, what do you think, like, where you would be at right now if, like, you had the resources, like even now, the craziness of ChatGPT and like, I mean, it's kind of, I think that way because I'm like, God, I only imagine like the what if, but I mean, I'm still going to create I'm running my race, and I'm going to make sure that I'm the best I could be for me. Right. But it's still like you, as an athlete and as like a competitive person, I look at like, man, people don't know the resources they have today.
I know.
You know, and I'm like, or even when it comes to like education for me, like if I'd have had the resources, like how much, I still feel like there's millions of things to learn, but you know, just how fast you could learn information or learn physical activity or the human body. It's just, you know, it's fascinating to me. I just trying to adapt to it because I'm a little old.
You're young to me, but I think about it sometimes, but I think what kind of worked what I grew up on. So I don't know if I'd want to change it, but my nephew is a trainer on a whole different level. He's got more degrees than I can mention. He started off in Gold's Gym, and he became the strength and conditioning coach at Arkansas men's basketball. Went to the Philadelphia 76ers. From the Sixers, he went to the Washington Wizards. And his vernacular in this field it's like when I hear him speak, it's like he's talking Latin. And he'll talk to me, and I'll start like laughing. And when he's done, I'll say, all right, Adam, tell me again, but pretend you're talking to a second grader, okay? But one of the things that he told me one time is this, and I've repeated, and this was years ago, and I've repeated this story many times. He says, Johnny, the things we're doing today, we didn't know about 6 months ago. That's how advanced it is. And I thought about that. And when I started from the early 70s all the way up to the mid 90s,
not much change.
Not much change at all. At all. I mean, in the 70s, weightlifting was discouraged. You're not allowed to play football.
You're a psycho.
Yeah. I mean, they knew nothing.
So interesting.
You know what was big training in the 70s? Running through tires that were on the ground. And that's the easiest way to trip and tear a ligament. You know? And it's like, that's what they were doing. And he said, what we do today, we didn't know 6 months ago. That's an astonishing comment.
Why do you think that is, that there is such a stigma on weightlifting though?
Oh, on
why is that the weird thing to do?
They didn't know anything back then.
Think about it. Most people were in body composition wise per Americans then versus even now, where you didn't have a lot of people that were so far obese or overweight or just out of shape, obviously, because the world's evolved and people got sedentary. So when you were the person that was like, Arnold was looked to like a freak, people looked at you and like, it kind of went through a wave though. I think it was kind of people kind of respected that back then, but I just feel like, everyone was decent, but these people, why would you do A, B, or C? Like, things are fine. Don't break, it's not broken. Don't fix it.
I've never thought of it like that. So basically, essentially what it'd be is, since people went so far the other way, like out of shape, it opened up the door for
now
in shape to be more
criticized, I think, more like.
But what?
Yeah.
I said, I feel like now, and it's getting a little bit better, but I feel like people look at you weird. And I always see people post it up, and analogies is like, you order a salad or you eat healthy, people look at you strange, and it's kind of like.
Do you think social media has played a big role in this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Because it's challenging to watch somebody do something and then I want to go out and do it.
Yeah.
Like I saw something today, a guy did something with battle ropes. It's already on my list. I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to start doing what he did, and I'm going to go after it.
Yeah.
And it's also something that I will now start challenging some of the people that I work with to do. Yeah. So
we've talked about a lot of like the benefits, like, okay, so being in shape and working out for longevity, how you're able to do that for so long. What are some of the negatives that you currently go through because of the way you trained your whole life?
Well, one of the things that you said a little bit earlier is looking back, certain things you were probably doing incorrectly.
Yeah.
When there's no coaches to coach you. And you're doing it all on your own from just watching somebody. I have figured out that when I was in high school and college, that I wasn't squatting properly. You could have a perfect squat visually. You could look and you're doing it perfectly. But if you're coming up with your back and not your legs, you're gonna get hurt. And I was squatting really heavy when I was in college. I joined a powerlifting gym, and that's a time that I was lifting really heavy squats. And I know that I was doing it incorrectly all these years later because the pain I would have throughout the week after it. And that's stuck with me forever. Yeah. And I knew it, but now I talk to people. I can watch somebody doing a squat, but it's still, you got to say, what are you thinking about when you're coming up? What is your mind telling you?
Where you're feeling it too.
Yeah. And then you can pass along the information that you've learned. So that's another subject, but it's a big thing.
Yeah.
And that is about giving back.
Yeah. Would you say the same?
Oh, absolutely. Just try to, I always say in all aspects of my life, if I could save someone the heartache or the headache or the pain, I powerlifted as well. I've torn a pec. I've had some injuries over the years. And so there's so much I just try to pass on. So hopefully somebody else doesn't go through it.
Yeah.
But in hindsight though, I look at you're kind of like in a different class, I guess, per your age where you came up. Like you're a lot more, I feel like as years come, the next 20 or 30 years, because ever since 2020, people are starting to get proactive, and obviously science is evolving. And it's like, it's nice for me. I love seeing people actually care about actually doing something now. Everyone's a little soft, and that's the difference. Like your era, like you're mentally strong, disciplined. We still have a lot of soft people that it's hard for them to put in work because just, how the world's evolved, right? And just people being sedentary and taking the easy route out. But, just going back to you though, I think like you got to pat yourself on the back because you're kind of like an anomaly. Like you're not a common 65-year-old guy, I mean, you are, but you're not so regardless, the good thing is those injuries or those issues that happened haven't kept you away from still kind of being in a good spot and being one of the top 0.05 percenters, right?
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the comments and the compliments. I appreciate them greatly, but I don't want to think about them because, and I'm grateful to hear it. It feels good. Affirmation is something everyone wants to hear, but I want to get better. I want to keep going.
Yeah, but see, I already know that's not you. Like, if you tell me, like, I'm like, well, like, I always feel that it could be better or more improved. And that's your why.
What makes us different is the fact that we want to be better. And we're never satisfied. And we've talked about this before. There's so many times in life when you'll look back and you'll say, damn, I remember that day. And I remember thinking, I'm not good enough. And now you're saying, man, would I like to be there now?
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. But I have noticed many thousands of times, all the times I've complimented people that are really great at whatever it is that they're doing. And it's always a version of the same answer. Yeah, well, I'm still working on this. I'm still working at that. It's not enough. I still got to get better. I'm not where I want to be.
But that's why they're there.
That answer.
Yeah.
And that's why they are. And I'll say that to them. I said, that's why you're great, is because you just answered that the way you just did.
Yeah.
And I think what we have is the ability to teach people that you can keep getting better. You keep learning. Surround yourself with the right people. And when you do that, you're going to come out on top, no matter what it is. Yeah. We talk about that in the gym all the time. The things that make you successful in this gym, the things that make you successful as an athlete, whatever it was. If you take those same things that got you there and you put them towards the outside life, you'll be just as successful there.
Going back to like your food, obviously, and then I want to talk like a ballpark about your training. I want to talk about supplementation, regular supplementation. And then maybe we could talk like peptides or something like that. But, because once again, most guys are going to look at you and they're like, I want to know what this guy's doing, right? I want to know what he's either eating, sleeping. Yeah. So, let's kind of follow back up, so you already got your breakfast, your post-workout meal, lunchtime. Like, what's your lunch look like?
I try and do a protein, which is chicken. I like to cook, and I can't cook like fish or meat at lunch. I just don't have the time to do it. But I do that at night. But when I'm on, I keep it simple. It's protein is either lean red meat, it's fish, several different types, or chicken, and a green vegetable, and rice or a sweet potato, things like that. I told you my breakfast, which is the same all the time, but I just keep it simple like that. Yeah. And but the one thing about nutrition is that it's really difficult for people to know that they're doing well. So in other words, we know that we need 3 things in order to be successful with our fitness. And that's challenging cardio, strength training, and proper nutrition. Yeah. Now, the first 2, cardio and strength training, when you leave the gym that you've crushed it. Yeah. But you don't know if you're eating properly, because it could be all the right things, but is it enough calories? Right. Is it too many calories? Yeah. Am I getting enough carbohydrates? Am I getting too many sugars? What am I doing? It's everybody has that uncertainty with their nutrition. So that third thing, that third part, it's a big part. Yeah. If there's only 3 of them, we're always a little bit uncertain about that. And it's tough to stay on that. So that's a big thing. Yeah.
So so do you do snacks in between, shakes or anything like that?
I try and do shakes in between. So we have things at the gym. Yep. So I can have some of those things, but I need to eat more fruit. I want to eat more fruit, and I got to get back into doing that. But the nutrition is something that I've just kind of kept it simple.
Yeah.
And tried to follow the simple things right.
Yeah. And obviously, and I always say, like, in the world of training, you know, it's like people will put in the work, but they don't see much results because their food's not set right. Yeah. And they're uncertain. So, you know, that's kind of the thing that truly gives like a consistent return, and just being close is going to produce results, you know? So it's, you know, as far as protein, real quick, hydrolyze, isolate. What do you like to use?
I use a whey protein, and I mix it with egg whites.
Okay.
So I'm big into the egg whites. I've been getting these egg whites from the same place for 15 years.
You get the ones in the carton, or
it's a gallon jug.
Okay.
And they have a pump. And
do you ever try muscle egg?
No.
They got like the flavored egg whites. I've had them before.
Yeah.
They're years ago.
These are cooked up to 181 degrees, I believe is the number. So it cooks out any of the
they're
salmonella.
pasteurized and all. Yeah.
So you could drink them.
Yep.
So typically I'll do a shake with 6 egg whites, some whey protein, some fruit, maybe some peanut butter, and make it good. But I like the taste of the egg whites.
Oh, they actually thicken up the shake for you.
And it does do that. Yeah.
Are you dialed in on like your macronutrients? Like,
No.
No, but see, but I love that, because you look at this guy and they're like, oh, he probably eats like slivered chicken and some broccoli and asparagus, and his life sucks. But like you're in the ballpark. You make sure you got protein, the building block of muscle.
Yeah.
You got glycogen or carbohydrates to fuel your physical activity that you do every single day. Quality fats to kind of fill the gaps on in between, depending on what you're doing. And you know, it's like people, I think it has to be difficult, and it's really not sexy. It's just, you know, it's like, you know, I mean, you can make it as, if you like to cook, you could definitely spice it up, but there's ways to do that to make good food taste really good, you know, healthy food. So, what does your dinner look like on average? I'm going to guess it's going to be a protein, a vegetable, and either, I personally do fat at nighttime, or a carbohydrate of like a clean carb. So you're a rice, potato, you know, sweet potato, white potato type guy, right?
Yeah. That's what I like.
Yeah.
But I still, you know, one of the bad things about Instagram, right, is clearly I must have started watching this because it's coming to me. The algorithm is really sending me all these great foods and people that are talking about restaurants, and this is the finest restaurant in on South Florida here in Boca, and it's like, man, I want to try that. I want to try that. And you know, they specialize. So now it's like, what's the best burger? There's 10 places and they're all different. And I like to go and indulge
taste
a little bit.
Yeah, but I guarantee you're pretty good about eating what you eat and shutting it off. You know, I always tell people, especially when you eat bad, you want to have quick memory loss. You know, and I think that's the thing that deters a lot of people.
That's funny. I like that.
You know, like they have one bad meal and they let it eat at them, and then it turns into a day or a week or a month. And it's like, just forget it and get right back on the 80% and you're fine. You know, but people just beat themselves up and then they're like, well, screw it, I threw in the towel. Let it rip. You know, and it's like, just if people would have quick memory loss and start from scratch.
So the thing that I have followed for a long time is keeping it simple, keeping it real, and keeping the sustainability. I cannot name how many diets have come down the pike over the last 30 years that I've seen. And this is the best one, and this is the best one. And I listen to them and I look at them and I say, it's impossible to sustain this. Why not do the 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, the 21 meals, cut out the 7, eat clean. Eating clean, by the way, doesn't have to be boring.
No.
You know, I can do grilled chicken, asparagus, and some rice, and it's delicious. It's how it's cooked. Now, I can't be the guy that's cooking my meals on Sunday night for the whole week because no matter what you do and how you warm that up, it's never going to be the same.
2-3 days max, and then you're kind of
I can't even do that.
Yeah.
I got it down. I know how to cook. I'm really efficient. I come in the house and it's all about cadence.
Yeah.
It's all about cadence. It's all about knowing your kitchen. Okay. You put something down, knowing where to go, knowing how many minutes it's got to be on the asparagus on this, knowing how long the salmon has to be on the grill.
Yeah.
And getting that. So if you get that down and you study how to cook, you know, repetition builds confidence. If I teach you how to cook salmon and a sweet potato and asparagus, and you follow me, and then 2 nights later you make it yourself, and then 3 nights later you do it again, and in 2 weeks I come to your house, you're going to have it down.
Yeah.
And so constantly teach yourself new meals to cook and do them to the point where it's mindless and you've got it down. But it's your kitchen is your home field.
Yeah.
So you go to someone else's house, it's never quite the same.
Yeah.
It's like playing on the road.
Yeah.
You know?
Figure out where everything's at.
Exactly. So I tell people, forget all these fancy diets and all this.
Yeah.
To me, just do what's going to be good for you to sustain.
Yep.
And if you have any doubt, think about what you've been doing to get you to the place you're sitting at now.
Yeah.
And you know, it's pretty obvious. So now that we're starting up something new, we're going to do challenging cardio, weight training, and we're going to do nutrition that's sustainable. It still tastes good.
Yeah.
You're going to get results. You're going to get results, and you're going to stay with it. And the problem is some people come in all guns a-blazing. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then they just fall off.
Well, unfortunately, the nutrition, and I don't ever say it's more important than training or sleep, but it's like, that's the thing that gets you the biggest change in ROI. And it's like, but that's the hardest thing for people to just buckle down and do, you know, especially if they've ate so bad or they don't have a good foundation. Like in my program for New Viva, I actually teach, you know, I can't fix your bad habits overnight. So I try to change 1 or 2 things from the most important working down, and eventually teach them how to count calories and how to position food, and to where they could take their own food. Because if they don't learn that, that's not gonna be long term. Like I gotta teach them how to fish. I can't, I can't just give them the fish. Unfortunately, a lot of places, here's a drug, here's a pill, here's a shot. Yeah. Good job. Yeah. And then when they're done, what do you do? You know, so like, yeah, but it doesn't have to be boring. Like you said, it's just, but that consistency that you've done for year after year, time after time, is produce great results and put you in a good spot. And it's like, even if you just do a little of the 3, you don't have to go to try to be like Johnny O, but like, or, you know, just find a little bit of consistency in all 3 and watch the results happen. And then also I always say, like, you know, kind of find the foods that you're actually going to eat, learn how to, depending on the type of food, like understand the calories with it. So, okay, I could have it, but I'm going to learn to adjust accordingly. And that's like nutrition 101, super simple, you know?
And sometimes nutrition 101 is all you need to know.
That's it.
And if you can do that and you get that down and you're consistent with it, you're going to be happy. You're going to have results, and, you know, don't overthink.
Yeah.
You know,
so as far as supplementation, and like, we're just going to talk like nutraceuticals or creatine, things like that. Like, what does your supplement regimen look like?
I take probably 4 different tablets for my joints.
Okay. So like a glucosamine chondroitin type one.
Yeah. And I got one that comes from Germany that is, you know, it's been created over there, and I get it, and I buy like a year in advance. I buy 12 months and I get the 13th month free. So I do that. I'm pretty basic. Vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, B12.
Okay.
And I think probiotics.
Okay, I was going to say, which one do you use, by the way?
I don't even know.
So I got one for you.
All right.
You know, I always look for like what's either the best product out that gives the biggest consistent return. Most probiotics don't survive our gut, and so we only get a small fraction of them. There's a company, and they should be paying me for this, but I just honestly, I don't care, because I love putting people on like the better products so they're not wasting time, money, or effort. But Seed. They have a patent on the 2 capsule system. I can't tell you. And for me, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of patients. So I've seen firsthand like the changes, and that's kind of why I've been able to kind of really hone in on what products actually do what they're supposed to do. So that's a great one. You know, just seed for a good pre and probiotic, keep your gut good.
Yeah.
You know, I know you said that thing from Germany. I got BPC, so I actually take oral BPC, which is a gastric pentadecapeptide that basically pulls inflammation down in the system.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I'd be curious to see what's in that product just so I could check it out.
I'd like to show it to you to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
So,
so as far as supplementation, you said simple. Do you take creatine?
I do, but I'm not consistent with it. But I do take it, and I can't tell you the name of that one either.
Yeah. Well, usually with creatine, I think, you know, a lot of products now have come to the market because everyone has to make things look sexy or different or better.
Right.
But just a plain old quality creatine monohydrate, what it can do for cellular energy, because it obviously helps ATP, which actually powers the mitochondria of the cells. 5 grams consistently. I think everyone, I say put it at the time that you're not going to forget it. Mine actually goes in. Sometimes I'll add into like an
How many times a day?
So I personally, like on training days, I'll actually do it in my beverage that I'm training with. So like, cause a lot of times I'll do a carbohydrate drink, more like a Carbolin or a highly branched cyclodextrin if I'm trying to build.
Right.
But I always add like a little bit of glutamine and 5 grams creatine. But almost every night I take 5 grams creatine. I have like a gut concoction drink that I use.
Yeah.
And then you don't forget it. It's just always going to be in the.
I have it on my desk and I forget it.
Yeah. So, but I'll tell you, that's like probably one of the best and cheapest things. And it's hard because the world is classed that as a bodybuilder freaking thing. And it's like super safe, probably the most well-researched, and gives you so many benefits. Not even if you're at Johnny O's gym, like just for overall life. So, you know, I would tell, like for you, I'd be curious to see how you feel if you get consistent with it every single night.
Do you take that year round?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
And
you don't need to load it. You don't need to cycle it. You know, the only thing I tell people with creatine is
it holds water.
Well, so when you first, because your muscles are 70% water. Right. So you definitely see some water weight shift when you first start. But if you're hydrating good, making sure that you got enough fluid coming in, that usually subsides. Your body will balance the water in our body. It's, you know, but most people don't even hydrate enough. Right. Or they hydrate too much, but they don't have electrolytes to actually hold on to it. But creatine, you see some water weight shift. Now, if someone's got like high blood pressure or, you know, renal insufficiency, like it's still safe. It's just, you just got to make sure it's not going to mess up your blood pressure.
Right.
And you're consistent. But if you're already like hypertensive, fix your food first, get some weight down, and then we'll add some creatine, you know?
Right. But here's the other thing that I think confuses so many people is we're all on social media. Yeah. And we go on social media and, you know, we think we're taking the right products. And then, this just came out and this came in good.
This don't work, and that's the product you need. Like,
scientists from Cambridge. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. So they don't say Harvard, but we know where Harvard's located. Yeah. It's in Cambridge. Scientists from Cambridge have scientifically proven that this, and they go on. And there's so much of it is bullshit. Well, it just is.
That's kind of why, you know, as much as there's cool resources and things out there in the world we live, there's a lot of hype and kind of duping that happens because everyone's going to sell their product. So, you know, I always tell just do your due diligence, you know, and make sure you find like a source. My goal is to be a source of consistent information on stuff that I don't even offer, you know, to help people kind of weed through the confusion that's out there in social media.
Yeah.
So, my final question I would want to ask both of you guys is and we'll do one at a time. What are the 3 most common mistakes men over 30 make when it comes to their fitness and nutrition?
Do you want to go first? I'll go first.
Inconsistency, right? Lack of knowledge, and probably still overeating. I think overeating is probably done more consistent than not eating enough, right? Yeah. But I would say that's what it is. Inconsistency, lack of knowledge. They're eating the wrong foods, and they're probably overeating. And that's my guess.
Yeah.
Is that.
What do you think?
I feel like people trying to cut corners for the quicker, faster way to get there, without focusing on like their food, their training, their sleep. And like, Mike's heard it before. I was like a lot of people want to step over 3 dimes to pick up a quarter.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you get your food right, which will give you hand over fist, like even when I can't train, my food goes non-negotiable good. So I don't go backwards or fall apart, but your sleep and your training. And if you got that down, obviously there's things you could do to help, and creatine can help out. And now you got the world of peptides that could accelerate it. But when you just solely use that one thing, you will never see anything close to the ROI of the 3 dimes.
Right.
And so it's like, focus on the 3 dimes, because they just want to go straight to the quarter.
Yeah.
And, I always say, if you add that quarter, once the 3 are done, dude, you got tons of money.
All right, so I wanted to hear your opinion on this, because I still don't really get this. And I don't have your knowledge as far as the nutritional part goes, but we have a metabolism, right? And our bodies are the greatest engine there is, right? You could have a $500,000 Ferrari with the greatest engine in there, and our bodies are better.
Yeah.
And we know what happens. So if you're eating, I was always under the thought process that if you eat 1 meal a day at 7 p.m. every single day, and you don't eat again until that time, your body is basically saying, all right, guys, we just got our fuel. We're not getting fuel for 24 hours more. Slow down. And our metabolism slows down because it learns the system.
Yeah.
We're not getting fed for 24 hours, so slow down. And now I'm hearing so many people, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And I got to admit, I know a lot of them, they look great. But then I see people that are overweight doing that, and it's not working for them. But logic would tell us that if we're eating 5 meals a day, but much lower portions, that our metabolism would say, all right, guys, let's get to fucking work.
Yeah.
We're getting fed again in 2.5 hours. So now it speeds up. What's the big...
Well, so, it's funny. I'm more of the thought. I'm like, in a lot of stuff with nutrition, I'm still old school. Obviously a lot of people with intermittent fasting, and let's just talk diets, ketosis, intermittent fasting. Those are okay plans. It's one of many plans, but I think a lot of people try to turn like keto into what they want to do. And that's where dirty keto stemmed from, right? Intermittent fasting, especially for the people that are overweight, is kind of like just allowed them to do what they were already doing, not eating. In our bodies, if we don't get enough food, said not enough food, slow our metabolism down. A lot of times I could do it through burning muscle, let my body adapt. So now I could survive on less food. But what it does for a lot of those people, it sets them up to eat like crap, and discipline and willpower. But I'm not a big fan of intermittent fasting as far as like a 1 meal a day intermittent fasting, but I am a huge fan, depending if it fits your schedule. Once again, it's going to be more specific. If you're training first thing in the morning, I probably wouldn't do it, or I would adjust my training to midday, but fast and then do like a 16-8 method to where there's still, 12 o'clock, 2:30, 5 o'clock, 7:30, and then shut it back down. So we can get enough calories in, because if you think, and there's people out there that'll argue this, that if your body needs 2,200 calories and you're going to eat 2,200 in one meal, like it's fine. There's going to be no difference. I could look at body composition. I could look at metabolic rate over time. Things are going to be worse over time. And then for the people that have no discipline to train and eat healthy during that time, it sets them up to make some bad decisions. And then all of a sudden that gap, metabolism gets lower, fat gets higher. And then when they go to try to lose weight, what happens? Nothing. Because their metabolism's down regulated. So
it's so slow.
Let's talk about it. Like you could pick up your metabolism through physical training, more so weight training or strength training. You could pick it up through food frequency, and then high intensity interval cardio does have a better net effect for increasing your metabolism. So, outside of actually physically weight training to build muscle that requires calories, and doing some high intensity intervals that will allow you to kind of boost your metabolic rate, food frequency can do that too. I just like it, especially in the weight loss world, is if I could teach you not to, if you eat smaller, more frequent meals, you're less apt to overeat. If I teach you to eat smaller, frequent meals, your blood sugar stays more stable, you're less apt to crave sugar and crap and stuff you shouldn't eat. So I look at it more as like, one, will support our system so we're not losing our metabolic rate, but two, for the people that don't have much discipline, it prevents them from doing the latter, you know, that most people do, don't eat and then overeat.
Yeah. Do you eat one meal a day ever?
No, I'll take that back. Once a year, I do a 3-day fast to clear out the gut, but I don't physically train during that time, so I'm not working against myself.
Yeah.
Every 3 months, I'll usually do a 24 to 48. I'm still not training during that time. So it's good to still give your gut a break.
Yeah.
And especially if you're not eating, you know, I eat low inflammatory type foods, but if you're not eating a low inflammatory type diet, it's good to kind of just get inflammation down. You know, there are some cellular health benefits, allows the pancreas to work a little bit better. But I don't I personally eat like 3 meals, 3 snacks. So, and you know, and one, if you do it that way too, you're never kind of too full to where you're not going to get food in. It'll allow me to get a little bit more food of the right food by smaller, more frequent. So, and that's old school. Everyone, you know, unfortunately, in the world we're in, like, you could take the benefit, but what are the potential negatives if it's done that way? And I, you know, you can't just say that's going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
So,
well, this has been awesome. Definitely should do a part 2.
I think we need a part 2 because we need to talk peptides or potential like age management type stuff.
100%.
Because I know guys are going to be biting at the bit to just know what else you're doing. You know, because I am in the world.
Well, the peptides thing is going to be real quick. I don't know anything about peptides.
Yeah.
Nothing. So we can get that out in session 1. But I really don't. And all I know is that they were somewhat popular years ago, but the people were telling me that were in the anti-aging business that they don't work as good as the test or the human growth hormone. Then human growth hormone became so expensive, and then all of a sudden now peptides are great again.
Yep.
So I truly don't know anything about them.
That'd be a whole.
I think
we would tear an episode on that
tomorrow, or we'll do it. Maybe tomorrow we'll do a part 2 on that specifically, and we got to figure out what peptides we got to get Johnny on.
Okay.
Well, I don't know anything about that, so it's
and I'm probably the guy that I know both sides super well, and even like the enhancement side. You know, there's 7,000 peptides. There's maybe 20 in my book that actually work. I mean, but what I love about them is the safety profile is so great, like very low risk because they're aminos that initiate certain responses. So there are growth hormone peptides that it's not going to do what synthetic does, but you're also not shutting your body's own production down and replacing and creating other problems. You know, there's peptides, you know, for healing if you get injured, you know. So there are, I would say, about 20 that have more precise application. But then the problem is, in the world I'm in, I see a lot of people just pushing the peptide with not the best application, or using something for the situation that you should use something different or nothing at all. So,
All right.
Well, if you are in or near Boca, check out Johnny O's Gymnasium. Best gym in Boca, maybe the best gym on the East Coast. Definitely the best gym on the East Coast. And if you're anywhere in Florida and you want to learn how to live for longevity, optimize your health, give Jeff a call at T Clinics or New Viva Medical Weight Loss. And thank you guys for coming on. This has been
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, my friend.